All right, welcome to the call. So glad you guys are here. I have set up a vanity in my room, and so I'm in this new space, and I'm kind of loving it. It's like, this is what's happening. I'm right here, but it's so great. That is a potential dress for my big event in July, but it doesn't really fit, so I'm gonna return it, but that's what that is, in case you were wondering. All right, so today's call, can we not do that? Bro, come here. Come on. I want to talk to you guys about, now that we are in, so we've wrapped up, those of you that started, on time with me. Hold on, I'm gonna put her out. We wrapped up the 21-day fix original in real time. And then this week there is nothing. It's just whatever you want to do. So you can do, like I said, last call, hopefully you've figured out something so that you're following something. At least for me, I need something to follow, or I just oftentimes don't get my workout in. So hopefully you're either trying, a little obsessed, a little more obsessed, Sean week, something to do this week. And then on Monday, or maybe some of you are doing Transform 20. But on Monday, we start filming 21 Day Fix Extreme in real time. So then we'll have 3 weeks of that. But I figure we're halfway through this. You have started with the 21 Day Fix plan, which is what, I talked about. So giving you kind of a guideline for what to eat, how to get in, like a more balanced meal plan with nutrients and stuff, but also hopefully you're working in some treats. Now, I know what happens a lot is when you're used to binging and you're in this cycle of dieting and then binging, then it feels like, because foods have been off limits for you for so many years, it feels like, well, I don't feel like I can bring in some of those treat foods because I feel like it's going to send me off the rails. And I appreciate that because I lived like that for years. But I want to share with you today kind of some steps on how to start making your way there, because really I want you to get you to the place where you have no fear around food and you're able to deal with the fluctuations that you're just naturally going to go through as you go through life, right? So for example, it was Easter this weekend, and so it was like lots of sugar and carbs and tons of mimosas just on fleek, and so if I had a scale to step on and I wanted to see what damage I did this weekend, surely it would say that I'm up. And I don't know that I'm up like actual weight, but I would be up due to the bloating and extra water retention, and I had more salty foods or whatever. So I would be up on the scale. Now, what I think happens a lot is you get on the scale. So you enjoy yourself on a holiday, right? And you think, okay, well, great. I'm not gonna feel guilty. I enjoyed myself. Today's a Monday. Now we move on. Then you get on the scale on Monday morning to see what damage was done, right? Like, we need to prove, like, how bad was I this weekend, right? Just based on what you ate, which is such bullshit. But like, how bad was I this weekend? And then you get on the scale and let it tell you, oh yeah, no, you were, yep, just like I thought, you were a fat, disgusting pig. Or you're like, oh, not so bad. That treat meal it didn't kill me, right? And it's based on the number that scale puts out. It's not based on who you are as a human or the amount of fun or memories that you made. It's not based on anything other than what the number says, right? So you do that, and then you get on the scale, and so then you're like, oh man, this is why I can't eat food like that, because then I just gain weight and I'm disgusting, and like, what's the point, right? So it's like this cycle of like, I want to live, I want to be able to eat freely, but then I gain weight because of it. And you didn't even actually gain weight. It's just a normal fluctuation that your body goes through, which is why I don't think you should have the scale. I also just feel like your body should just naturally fluctuate like 10 pounds based on the season of life that you're in, right? Like, in a couple months, you could have a very stressed out, super busy, not able to like be eating at home that much, or you're traveling, or, somebody's really ill or like a flu hits your house and like it hits every family member. So like for 2 months, you guys are just not running at full capacity. And whatever it is, the stresses of life, like your body is going to fluctuate like the stresses of life. The problem is we think that the problem is our body. So then we go and diet, and that only adds more stress. And so I've been doing some research into like the mindset of dieting and why diets don't work. And that is, and it's also why I don't know why you guys decided to join me. I'm very grateful for it. I noticed that a lot of my friends, people that I love and adore, still really focus on, like I see them on social media focusing on like, oh my gosh, look at what they did in 3 weeks. Whoa, like down 10 pounds. And I'm like, who gives a shit? Like, I don't care. And they're my friends. Like, I love them, but I'm like, I don't care what their bodies did in 3 weeks. Like, how is their mind? And can they keep this off? Because diets, I really don't feel like diets work, which is why I want to teach you how to kind of bridge that gap between the diet binging cycle by teaching you the 21-day fix original meal plan, but then encouraging you to get off of it as soon as you can. So the diet binge cycle, and I'm not sure all of you have an issue with binging. I thought everyone did until I ran like a self-love book club, and we picked a book that was on about kind of beating yourself up based on binges. And there was tons of people that were like, this doesn't resonate with me. I don't have issues with food. And I'm like, what? There's people that don't have issues with food? Like, what a crazy concept, because I have been plagued by food issues, right, my whole life. So maybe this won't resonate with you, but I think on some level it will with everybody. So the idea with diets is that you start a diet because you feel like, maybe and I started my first diet like in high school. And now girls are starting their diets in elementary school, which is so sad. But you think about like, at one point, at some time when we were much younger than we are now, we felt like we had gained weight, right? Or we feel something, or we compare ourselves to somebody else. So you start this diet. You're like, I'm going to lose these 5 pounds I put on, or whatever. That's where it starts. So you start a diet. And you think, yeah, I'm doing great. Like, this feels good. I am in control. You throw out all the junk. You're in total control of your choices. You feel really empowered. You feel really excited. And some of this might have been how you felt when you started this group. I'm guessing those of you that are on here live have been able to stick with this a little bit more than some people who are not, because they're beating themselves up already. And so they're not even wanting to plug into these calls. But I hope that they do. So maybe you started this group and you felt really excited and you had a lot of like willpower, and you cleaned out your cupboards and just felt excited, and you were happy for the first several days to like do your workout and eat veggies and like not have your cookies and all of those things, whatever it is. And then what happens is you start noticing food a lot more. So you start looking around you and seeing, so the triangle is you start a diet doesn't, you start getting discouraged. I'm going to break this down. You start getting discouraged. So then you binge. And then after the binge comes the guilt, where you're like, of course you did that. You have no willpower. You are so weak. You'll always be fat. Right. And then after the binge, you go back to the diet, and then the diet leads to the binge, leads to the beating yourself up, leads to the diet, right? So that's the triangle. So you start this diet, you start this new lifestyle or whatever, and you feel really excited and in control. And then a few days in, that initial surge of anxiety and excitement wears off. And then you start just thinking about food a lot more. You notice what your coworkers eating. You see people walking down the street. You notice it in commercials, that you're just more hyper-focused on food, what people are consuming, and then you just start thinking about food all the time, right? And you're still trying to stick to this restrictive diet that you've been following. And hopefully this was pre-Ashley, pre you joining this group. And now you don't feel like you have this super strict diet where you have to restrict yourself. But I had very restrictive diets before I found this new kind of lifestyle way of eating. So and I can remember that. Like, I remember trying everything, like the cayenne lemon cleanse, because Beyonce did that. I've done juice cleanses. I did Weight Watchers, showed up in Weight Watchers meetings and tried to, use the point system. I did something called the Scarsdale diet. I did Jenny Craig. I tried the cookie diet. I bought fat burners. I tried wraps. I've tried creams. I've literally tried, I felt like I tried everything for my next solution. But all it did was make me like feel more deprived and more restricted. And then life would happen, right? So I'm going on maybe a week of like doing this new thing that I found, the super restrictive thing, finding myself really focusing on food a lot, like noticing. I remember being mesmerized. There was a girl I used to work with, and she would have like one of those like half of a fun size little candy things, you know, like a Milky Way, the little square ones. And she would be like, that was good. And then she would be fine the rest of the day. Like she would function as if that was normal. And I was like, how does she have that much control? Like if I have one of those things, I spiral, right? I can't allow myself to have one because then it's all bets are off. And I didn't understand how I was like, I wish I could get there. And so she was just kind of naturally thin, lived with peace, you know? And it was a way that I never thought was possible for me. Turns out it is. But it took a lot of work. So anyway, you're so focused on all the things that people are eating, and then life hits, right? You miss the promotion, right? Your coworker, and you go out for the promotion, she gets it. And you are already feeling defeated and frustrated because you're on this diet, and then that happens. Or you get your car flat tire. You got to get new tires or something, right? So then there's like a $600 bill you weren't expecting. Or your kid throws up milk all over the back of your car, and then you're like on the way to work, you're already stressed out and frazzled because your mornings are rushed, and then you've got this milk puke to clean up, which is disgusting, and it's like in your seats, whatever, right? These things happen, and then you find yourself turning to the only thing that you know is going to bring comfort in that stressed out time, and that's food. So then you have whatever you have, right? So maybe in the morning you decide, I'm going to have a donut because F this. I'm going to have a donut. It will just make me feel better. I'll have one donut. I'm in control. I will feel fine with it, except for you don't feel fine. You have one donut, and then that leads you into whetting that appetite with the food that's been forbidden. So then you have another donut, and then you just continue spiraling. I don't know how to turn my text going insane right now. How do I turn this? So then, you find yourself like in the drive-through line, you find yourself writing off the rest of the day. You find yourself eating everything that isn't nailed down. And then after you're done with like this binge or, going off the rails, you come to and you're like, oh my God, why did you do that? You're so disgusting. Like, why can't you just stick to something? What is wrong with your willpower? You should be stronger than this, right? So then you go and you beat yourself up, and then you resolve, this time's going to be different. And on Monday, I'm going to go all in. And to make up for what I just ate and all of this shit, I'm going to be even stricter. I'm going to limit my calories. So I got to make up for the damage that I just did, right? So it's all of, yes, it's this cycle that we are in. And, so then you just are like bouncing, and then you start just going like crazily through this triangle, this diet triangle. And you feel like there's no way out, and you blame yourself for this. You're blaming yourself, like your lack of willpower, your lack of strength, diet, like you always were going to be fat, you blah, blah, blah. Like it just gets worse and worse. And the worse your binges are, then the more restrictive your diet, the more restrictive your diet, the worse your binges, the harder you beat yourself up. And then you're just like ping ponging in this triangle, and it's not really living, right? And the thing is like, I want to tell you guys about this study. So there was a study done in the 1940s, and it was actually done by the government. It was a government sanctioned study to find out how much they could feed their soldiers, like how little the soldiers needed to eat to get away with it. So yes, Kim, I'm going to tell you about it in a minute. So how little the soldiers needed to eat, and then they could still sustain. So they found a group of 400 healthy men that were living their normal lives, not dieting, not thinking about food. They were healthy, whatever. And they put them on a very strict 1,600 calorie diet, which I think is so interesting because for us, now media culture spews 1,200 is the magic number. 1,200 calories, that's where you should be to lose weight. That's basically borderline starvation to me. That's why I don't really eat. I don't ever teach anyone to eat out of plan A. I prefer plan B at the minimum if you're, for the 21 day fix. But anyway, they put them on this 1,600 calorie diet, which was borderline starvation for them. And I can't remember how long it was, but it was several months long. But in the first week, they started noticing they were, tired, a little more dizzy, sluggish, and then having brain fog, having trouble sleeping, didn't, whatever. So they had those things in the first week. Then in week 2, it starts getting more, and then they find themselves, they can't stop. They can't think about anything but food. They notice a food everywhere around them. They're thinking, they started collecting cookbooks. They started writing down recipes. They started hoarding all these things of when they could eat again, what they would do. So they started just being fixated on food. Right? And then I have my notes here. So, okay. Oh, yeah, I have another thing that I need to say, but let me find this guy. Hold on. Okay. Yeah. So another participant recalled that he couldn't wait for the experiment to be over, and not because he was in physical discomfort, because he was hungry or whatever. It was because the study made food the most important thing in his life, right? I've been there. So as the weeks passed, the psychological impact grew more serious. The men became tired and irritable. They lost their ambition. They began to feel inadequate, which makes me really sad to think about how many of us are doing that to ourselves, right? We're putting ourselves on these diets, and as a result, we think it's going to make us feel better because we can't wait to be thin or lose the weight or whatever. As a result, it's making us feel inadequate and lethargic and leading to depression and making us feel worthless, all of those things, right? So these men started to grow profoundly self-critical. They were healthy, well-adjusted men, never thought about food, but they began to experience distorted body images and reported feeling overweight, moody, emotional, and depressed. This is, as I was reading this study, I'm like, yeah, that was my life, right? That is so much of our life for us. So no longer were these well-adjusted, good-humored, motivated men, they were now basically unrecognizable because they were stuck in this mental headspace that dieting had put them in. And this was also a one-time experiment for them. This was not a lifelong cycle of dieting like most of us and many of us have been on, right? This didn't start for them in high school or middle school. This was just a few month isolated incident. And now they are saying, okay, it says, here's the kicker. This study could not be repeated today because the American Psychological Association would forbid it for the unethical, inhumane treatment of subjects. And yet we are doing that to ourselves all the time, all the time, right? So when, diets don't work, it's not a sign of weakness on your part or a lack of willpower. It's simply the natural result of scarcity making something more desirable. The scarceness itself causes us to want it more. It's a scientifically validated fact. Marketers know it. Smart girls on the dating scene know it. And Mac Cosmetic knows it with their clever limited edition collections. And as I was reading that, I was thinking, yeah, how many times do you want something because it's a limited thing? Right? Oh, secure your spot in this because there's only room for 20, or we are putting out a limited edition this, gotta get it now. Sure, gotta buy it now. You do want more when it's a scarcity mindset. That's just our brains. That's just science, how it works. There was another study that they did this thing, an experiment with, I don't know how many people, but did an experiment where they brought in two groups of people. One group was told they can, they were both told about a white bear. They were both told about polar bears, right? Then one study was asked to not think about bears. They are not allowed to think about the white bear. They cannot think of it. The other group was told, yeah, just think whatever, and if the white bear comes up, great. Every time they thought about the white bear, they were supposed to ding a bell in front of them, right? Guess who thought about the white bears more? Of course, the ones that were forbidden from thinking about them, because it's just our brains, right? Because of the way the brain works, we have to remember we're not supposed, what you're not supposed to think about, hold on, because of the way the brain, you have to remember what you're not supposed to think about in order, oh, right. You have to remember what you're not supposed to think about in order to actively not think about it, right? So you go on this diet, I cannot, it's like us, and it's like me and, what's my vice? Like, I think my vice is candy, really, and sugar, like cupcakes, right? So it'd be like, when I first started dieting, it would be like any kind of candy. Those are off limits, bad foods, I can't have them, except then I started thinking about them all the time. And that's what I wanted, right? And so think about the last food that maybe you went overboard with. What was the last food that you had kind of a binge on, or like you were on a diet and then you went off the rails? What was the last food? It was probably one of those things you had told yourself was off limits, right? Like, when was the last time anyone binged on broccoli? And I felt uncontrolled around broccoli, you know? So like, what was the last thing you binged on? It was probably something that you were forbidding yourself from having. So, and I think this is really interesting. The extent and ferocity with which you binge is directly proportional to the extent to which you restrict what you eat, right? So this is why diets don't work. They're setting, it's not you. It's not that you don't have the willpower or the strength. It's literally science. And that is why I want to get you to a point where you can allow those foods in and just enjoy what you want to enjoy without that shame spiral that comes after. And so I have a little assignment, and I'll post this in the page, but this is kind of your homework. Oh, one other thing that I wanted to say that I forgot to say. Okay, there was a study done, Arthur Frank, medical director of the George Washington University Weight Management Program. Out of every 200 people that start a diet, only 10 of them will successfully meet their weight loss goals. 10. So that's just 10, whatever percentage that is. This is like nothing, right? Then, when you look at who actually, of those 10, who keeps the weight off when you're dieting, one out of 10. So diets, statistically speaking, have a 99.5% of failure. Almost 100% failure rate. And yet we continue to do it, and then we blame ourselves that we are the issue when the diet doesn't work, right? But it's really the science and the brain. Like, our bodies are smart. You would never rely on something like to work if that was the failure rate, right? So they gave this comparison to a plane. Like, if there was an airline that out of every 200 planes that took off, only one plane landed, you would never, ever fly that airline. Like, ever. And then if for some reason you had a momentary lapse of judgment and you accidentally booked yourself on that airline, then you're flying and you're in the air, and all of a sudden the engine goes down or goes out or whatever, and you start crashing, you're not going to blame yourself for the engine going out. You're like, damn it, this freaking airline, it fails every time, right? I should have known. Thus with dieting. So here is the, yeah, Amanda said, when I first started mindful eating, I thought I would binge all of the time on bad food. It was the complete opposite. After about 4 to 6 weeks, when I was better at me, I cried from freedom. Yeah, it's seriously, so it's going to take some practice, but here is what I want you guys to do. So I'll post this in the group, but here are the steps. So I want you to, I'll write this down for you, but I want you to take out a pen and paper and write about your relationship with food. So write down your hopes, dreams, visions, and I think it's good to set intentions, but also write down what's not working for you. So you'll complete this sentence. I want to be blank with food. Right now, I am blank with food, out of control, whatever. And I wish to be this because it would make me feel this. I wish to change this with food, and I am willing to let go of guilt or whatever, fill it in, so I can have freedom with food. So doing that sentence of like really thinking about what your feelings are around food, sets a clear foundation of what's currently happening for you and what you wish to change. And then that way, when you get off track, and because you will have more binges, like you will do this as you start getting more into just, intuitive eating, you can kind of circle back to be like, this is where I am, this is where I want to be. And you will start seeing like you'll make progress. You just will. So then I want you guys to write down the statement: in order to be normal with food, I have to stop dieting. And then write down the pros and cons of dieting. So you can be very honest and you can write down like whatever you see as a pro. I lose weight, I feel good, whatever your pro is. Cons are, they never work, I feel deprived, I lack energy, I always feel like a failure, whatever. So write down those lists. And I mean, it can be hard to come up with this list, especially when you've been dieting for so long, and how sometimes it has helped you lose weight, even if it was only short term. To be honest, if diets worked, you guys have all tried them in the past, you wouldn't be here. You would not be in this group because you would have been fine, right? Diets just don't work. So maybe it's helped you lose a diet, or restricting has helped you lose weight in the past, but you probably gained it back, right? So it goes back to that the diets don't work. But you're just going to become a regular eater. You're going to eat when you're hungry, stop when you're full most of the time, which means you don't eat a whole pizza. You eat 1 or 2 slices, and then you just pay attention to your hunger cues, right? And then I want you to make a list of all the foods that make you feel out of control. Like, what are the things that you've told yourself are off limits? And then if you have them, those are usually the things that open the floodgates, right? So make a list of those things. What are the things that trigger the guilt after you eat it? Or things that, you have regret about eating. And then you're going to start small. So on day 1, you're going to include one of those foods in your day. You're going to plan when that is. Maybe you're going to have a donut at breakfast. Maybe you're going to have a cookie after lunch. Maybe you're going to have a glass of wine with dinner. Whatever the things are, you're going to start with that and just start incorporating that for like a week, Start doing that for a week. And when you have those things, when that feeling that starts rising of like, I'm doing something bad, I shouldn't be eating this, now that I'm having this, I should stop, slow down, and think that this is on plan. This is a part of the plan. Because really what happens, the reason that you're gaining all the weight and the reason that you, are feeling so bad about yourself is because of the shame spiral and the binge and the shame spiral. The binge, like that is why you are where you are. So if you can realize that you're allowed to have that cookie, that donut, that cupcake, that wine, that pizza, those nachos, whatever. If you realize that's a part of the plan, you can start breaking those boundaries that you have with food. And so when you start to spiral out of control, think like, no, I'm not doing anything that I'm not supposed to be doing. This is totally allowed and expected. And this is my homework. It's my homework to have this. So then you're going to start, including those kinds of things multiple times a week, right? Maybe you'll have 2 treats in a day. Maybe you'll have the cocktails at dinner and the bread basket, or whatever your things are, right? And then the really important thing to start thinking about, like releasing that grip that you have on food, is to start paying more attention to your hunger cues. So when you're eating, do it slower. Chew slower, taste the food. That happens a lot when we're binging, is you're just shoveling in, you're not even really tasting it, and it's just kind of autopilot. You're just like kind of, this crazed animal. So you're not really tasting it, and that's why the guilt comes in too. You're not listening to my satiation, you're not listening to hunger, you're not tasting the treat that you want, right? So I want you to really start like feeling your stomach, thinking about your stomach. Am I hungry right now, or is there an external cue that's telling me I should eat, i.e. the diet culture that says eat every 2 to 3 hours or your metabolism's falling to shit. I do think a lot of us have to do some work on metabolism where maybe we don't have all the hunger cues, but so that's why I think it's important to really be eating like a lot of, veg nutrients and stuff like that to start getting your body used to having more food. But I want you also to be listening to your hunger cues. And especially when you're eating, sometimes we, as like especially you go out to eat and you're like, serve this huge thing and you're full like a third of the way through of the meal, generally, unless you go to a super expensive fancy restaurant and then they serve you like a thimbleful of something and charge $100. But generally at most places, it's a huge portion and you're just like, you're enjoying the food, but you're not paying attention to your body and when you're actually full or not, right? So I really want you to start paying attention to your hunger cues. And also your satiation cues, like, is that the word, satiation? So that way you can just really be more in tune with how you're feeling, how your mind is feeling, how the food is tasting, how your body and your stomach is feeling and stuff like that. And, you know, try to stop when you're full. And when you start to feel yourself like spiraling, check in with the group. Because I do think a lot of times this binge eating and this shame eating, it has way more shame because we're doing it ourselves. That's why there are so many closet bingers. There's people that, you know, don't want people to see them eating the kind of food. So it's like, once my husband leaves for work and I'm left home and the kids are down, then I'm going to raid the cupboards or whatever, you know? And so talking about it and like, this is a safe space to be like, guys, I'm feeling like I'm going on a binge right now. And just, the Brene Brown has, I think I've talked about her. I know I've talked about her on social. I don't know if I've talked about her in here, but Brene Brown is the one person. She's an author and she talks about shame and vulnerability and, you know, being courageous. She studies shame and she was who first allowed me to talk about my depression. Because her theory is like, we've all got these gremlins in our closets, these things that we are ashamed of or embarrassed of. And for some of us, that is binge eating or our eating habits in general, or a thought that we don't have willpower. So we all have these things in our closets, and gremlins are the most powerful in the dark. They cannot survive the light. So as you start to shine light on your gremlins, like for me with my depression, I was so ashamed of it. And when I first started talking about it, I didn't include the fact that I was suicidal. But I started shining the light on it. And then it just, more and more I talked about it and the more light I shined on it, the less power it had over me. So the less food and your binging is going to have over you when you check in with the group, when you, you know, check in with yourself, talk to your husband about it, talk to your best friend, like whatever, talk to someone about it. Just don't have the shame around it, and then deal with it yourself, because it just makes it so much worse. It's compounded when you're on your own. So you'll shine the light on that. So though that's your assignment, right? I want you to get clear on your relationship with food, how you feel about it, how you want to feel about it, what you're willing to do to feel that way about it. Dieting pros and cons, and then a list of all the foods that you feel out of control around, and then include food or drink that you feel out of control around, and then include one of those as a part of your plan every day for this week. And that's going to feel really hard. Like having a brownie is going to feel hard. But when you feel any sort of shame coming on, that's when you check in with the group. All right. Amanda said, I just binged yesterday. And although I know overeating is a part of mindful eating, intuitive eating, binging isn't. It was completely emotional and scared me. Like I was going back to the old me. So today's chat is perfect timing. And you know what's so interesting is it's always going to be a spectrum. Hold on. My mouth is dry. So on Monday, you know, Easter was Sunday, enjoyed everything, had all the things, you know, no restriction. And then Monday, I went to Target to return something, found myself in the Easter candy aisle. It was all on sale, so I bought a lot and brought it home because I feel in control around it. Like I can be in my cupboard and I'm okay. But then what happened was I didn't work out on Monday, which for me, you know, you don't have to earn your food or whatever, but for me, that really helped set the tone of showing up for me in a healthy way, doing something that's good. So I didn't work out. And then I started having candy, started having some candy, and I wasn't having nutrients. And so then I started getting in my head about like, you know, and on Sunday night when we got home for Easter, John ordered pizza. He ordered a gluten-free for me. So I had a piece of pizza. He was heating up his pizza. So then on Monday I had a piece of pizza, and I just started thinking like, you didn't work out. You're not having any nutrients. You haven't had your shake yet. And so I was just like, well, and so I just started eating candy. And then what I wanted to do, there was a bottle of wine open in the fridge, and I wanted to just like, well, I'm just going to have this wine. I'm just going to have wine because I want to see what it's like. I want to see I hadn't tried this wine that was in there. So I wanted to have it, and I just thought, well, I'm already like eating all the things and consuming everything, and I'm not doing anything nutritional, like I might as well. In that moment is when I had to check myself, because I didn't really want the wine. I wanted it because I was off the rails, right? Because I was just consuming. And so I didn't have the wine. It's not because I couldn't have it. It's not because it was off limits. If I wanted the wine, I could have had the wine. The thing is I started eating because I wanted it, right? I had the piece of pizza. I didn't work out for a good reason, like my back, and I had this thing taken off and it was supposed to get wet or whatever. So I didn't work out for a good reason, and I didn't feel bad, but whatever. I wasn't like showing up for myself. Oh, and then Roka, we think her ACL, so I couldn't go for a walk with her. I mean, I could go for a walk without her, but I don't like doing that. So I didn't go for my walk with the personal development. So like none of the ways that I normally show up for myself happened. So then I started like what started out as, I'll just have a piece of pizza. It's fine. And then I want to try these candies. And I tried this first candy. It was a new candy to me. It was like a natural something. It was gross. So I'm like, well, that didn't work. I'm going to have this. And then it was chocolate, and I'm not as much of a chocolate fan. So then I was like, I'm going to have these Starburst jelly beans that I bought. So then I had those. And then when I had tallied up all the things that I had eaten, I was like, then I started just doing the shoveling, right? Like, I'm just going to just do this. Oh, I'm going to have some of that wine too. And that at that point, when I realized, and it was very difficult for me to put the candy away and not have the wine. Again, not because I couldn't have it, it's because I didn't want it and I was consuming anyway. So it was very difficult for me to not have it. Now, I did kind of have a small binge, not too much, not too bad. But if I normally then, when I have a full-on binge, I feel super guilty the next day. Like I feel like, oh God, what is wrong with you, And now my story is also like, you teach people how to eat and do this, and like, you can't even do it. And like, but it's all just a spectrum. Like it's always a work in progress. We are undoing, like I am unlearning years of disordered eating. You don't have to be an anorexic or bulimic to have disordered eating. Like binge eating or overeating or having issues with food or the way that your body looks, that's all disordered eating. It's not talked about as much, but it is. So I know I'm overcoming years of that. So that doesn't happen overnight. It takes time. So, but then instead of feeling any kind of guilt about the binge that I did have, which it wasn't even really a binge, it was just I was eating just because, not because I wanted it. And so I was just eating, but I still felt like a winner the next day because I didn't continue the binge and I didn't have the wine, right? And so stopping yourselves in your tracks, instead of saying, well, I've already done all this damage, I may as well just go balls to the wall and eat everything that isn't nailed down, and then I'll start again tomorrow. The problem is there is a massive shame spiral, like it's a massive drop when you go on a really intense binge, and that can leave you feeling even worse the next day. So you already start out the day not feeling in control. You already start the day feeling worse and gross, right? So even stopping mid-binge is helpful, because that is like when you recognize, am I eating this because I want it? Am I actually choosing this, or is my choice turned off and it's just happening? Like I'm just consuming because it's there, because I can, because I'm YOLOing, because I'm, off the rails, whatever. And so, yeah, like those binges and those things are still going to happen, but catching yourself mid, and it's going to be hard. I'm telling you, it was very difficult. And I thought a lot about that wine that night, because it was in there just open, waiting to be drank, but I didn't want it. I was just going to have it because I could, right? Just because I was already eating all the shit, might as well have the wine with it. And so even though I consumed some YOLO stuff and it wasn't a choice, it was just autopilot, I still felt like a winner because I stopped, like I regained control, right? So then I woke up yesterday feeling really like in control. I felt fine. And so recognizing that as well, and recognizing those small wins. Like, again, there is no such thing as perfect. It's just effort every day, showing up to be the best that you can. So it takes work. I almost just tried to like finger, whatever is that called? Brain fog. Like, it's a laptop. You can't use it's not a touch screen, whatever. Anyway. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Good. All right. So any questions about anything that I said? Okay, well, hopefully this all makes sense. Hopefully you guys are up to the challenge for this homework. I know it feels a little woo-woo, like mental stuff, but I think it's important to like really just be, as much as you can, be working through this and your relationship with food. Kim said, I also need help figuring out what is a nice to have. I'd like to have X versus craving and choosing it. I don't know what you mean by that question. I need help figuring out what is I'd like to have versus craving and choosing it. Like the wine is nice to have. No, okay, well, here's where my motivation was for the wine. I can have wine whenever I want. I have wine several days a week. The issue on Sunday night, Monday night was I didn't want the wine. I wanted the wine because I was already out of control, because it was like, because it was there, because it was open, because I was already eating all this other crap. So what's the wine gonna do, right? What more damage can be done with some wine? May as well throw it on top of all this other junk that so it wasn't, man, a glass of wine sounds really good right now, I'm gonna have the wine. It was, the wine is there, I'm already out of control right now, I'm already YOLOing. So I think it depends on your motivation. Do you want the wine because it sounds good and you're in control of your choices and your food? Or do you want the wine because it's coming from a different motivation, from a self-loathing, a binging, a autopilot, right? Exactly. So my want came from a negative place, right? So at lunch, at the fast food drive-through, like whatever, do you want the cheeseburger, or are you stressed and you've had a shitty day and that just feels like the easiest solution? Do you want it because that would taste good and that feels good and that's what you actually want? Or is it coming from a negatively driven place? Does that make sense? I see you shaking your head, so I'm hoping yes. Okay, good. Okay, good. Stacy, once you've gone so far off the rails, do you give yourself a strict period of time before you work the treats back in, like time to get yourself in control? So I think that I used to have a much longer period of like reset time. The more you do it, the easier it gets. And I think also those resets can come from a negative place, a punishment place of, I'm going to be very strict and not let myself have any of these things because I'm out of control and I've got to make up for what I did. Like, you're really strict with yourself. That's coming from a negative place versus, all right, you went a little crazy this weekend. Let's rein it back in and just regain control of our choices, so you feel in control again. So it's coming from more of a loving, positive place. So at this point, like, I don't, I did that thing on Monday and I didn't change anything on Tuesday. So I didn't really have to have it because I regained control mid kind of binge, right? I woke up, and that has taken me also years to get to, but I also had no one teaching me this. Like, I just kind of had to learn as I go and follow things on social media and just pick up bits here and there. So I'm hoping that I can like fast track you guys a little bit by working some of this education into you. But yeah, so, oh good, Michelle. So if you feel like you've been off for a few weeks, doing a strict reset out of hatred, or making a hatred of yourself, or making up for any of the damage that you did, or feeling like, God, you're so pathetic, you can never do this. All right, time to restart the diet, time to be really strict. That I'm not a fan of, right? But doing all right, I want to regain control of my choices. So I'm going to say no to these things, because right now, some of those I want to have the cookie is still rooted in a negative space. It's rooted in like, what's the point? What's the point of even trying? I've been eating like this for several weeks. Like, what's missing this one cookie gonna do for me? Really? Like, am I really gonna lose weight by not having that one? Fine, I'm just gonna have the cookie, which then leads into another day of shame spiral, right? Can you feel the difference? Like, it's just a negative, like, well, why the fuck not? Sure, I'm gonna just have that because why not? Versus, no, I don't even really want it. Just because it's free and it's there doesn't mean that I have to have it. And I'm going to regain control of my choices. So I hope that kind of helps. All right. Hopefully that helps you, Stacy. Okay, guys, that's all for this week. And I appreciate you guys hopping on with me live. I really appreciate those of you who are able to get on live. So thank you for making the time to do so. Hope this was helpful for you. I'll get the replay posted and I'll also get your assignment up. Not every week is going to have an assignment, I don't feel like, but just for the last 3. I've been diving more into like research on this stuff. So the last 3 weeks there has been some assignments. But oh, the book that I just downloaded is called How to Have Your Cake and Your Skinny Jeans Too. And then I haven't started this yet, but this is the girl, Body Positive Power. Megan Jane Crabb. She is Body Posy Panda on Instagram. She is the first body positive person that I found in my newsfeed on Instagram. She is who started me like on this body positive train. I've unfollowed her since because I don't resonate with all the things that she says anymore. You know, and that happens. Like you follow people and you unfollow as you grow and evolve through things. But I did buy her book just the other day, and hopefully it's good, but I haven't read it, so I can't vouch for it, but I will say following her is great. So it's Body Posy, P-O-S-I, Body Posy Panda on Instagram, and then that book, How to Have Your Cake and Your Skinny Jeans Too. So, all right, guys, I'll see you soon. Bye.